My ex-husband called me on a Tuesday morning, calm as ever, with that familiar tone that used to fool me into thinking he was being reasonable. "Hey, Laura. Just wanted to give you a heads up. Ethan didn't get the scholarship after all," he said casually, like he was telling me the weather forecast. "So, we're on the hook for the full tuition. It's $21,360 for the first semester. I'll send you the wire info, you can transfer your half by Friday." I stood in my kitchen, coffee cooling in my hand, staring out the window at nothing. "What do you mean he didn't get the scholarship?" I asked slowly. He sighed, like he was already tired of explaining. "Apparently, there was a mix-up. They said he didn't make the final round. It sucks, I know. But we'll make it work, yeah? You still have your finance job, right?" I didn't respond. I just nodded, even though he couldn't see me. He took my silence as agreement and hung up a minute later with a chipper, "Thanks, Laura. Always knew you'd come through." That call stayed with me the whole day. My name is Laura Mitchell. I'm 42, a financial consultant in Philadelphia, and the mother of an 18-year-old named Ethan, who just got into Franklin Ridge University to study computer science. And 5 years ago, I was married to a man named Craig. Craig is charming in the way some snakes are beautiful. Polished. Persuasive. He could sell sand in the desert. He was also unfaithful, and after years of second chances and late-night tears, I filed for divorce the same week I found lipstick on a collar and lies in his inbox. We shared custody of Ethan, who was 13 at the time. The court ruled for joint legal and physical custody. But Craig insisted we split finances evenly, especially when it came to school. 50-50, he said, no matter what. Fine by me. I never minded paying my share. I just wanted Ethan to be happy. Ethan is the kind of kid who builds websites for fun and fixes Wi-Fi routers at family gatherings. He's quiet, observant, and brilliant. When he got accepted into Franklin Ridge, a highly competitive private university, I nearly cried. He deserved it. But now, I was being told he didn't get the scholarship we were all expecting. The one his counselor said he was a top candidate for. The one he'd mentioned proudly over dinner 3 months ago. Something didn't sit right. That night, I called Ethan. He sounded tired, distracted. "Hey, Mom. Hey, sweetheart. I talked to your dad. He said you didn't get the scholarship?" A pause. "Yeah, that's what he told me, too." "You sound unsure." "I don't know, honestly. Dad's been handling most of the school stuff. Said he'd deal with the paperwork. I haven't seen anything official." I felt something tighten in my chest. "Did you get any emails from the school?" "I used to, but lately everything's been going to Dad's email. He said it was easier that way." "Easier for who?" We talked for a few more minutes, mostly small talk. He was excited for move-in day. Nervous about dorm life. Trying not to think too hard about the money. After we hung up, I opened my laptop and logged into the FAFSA system and the application portal we used when Ethan was applying. I still had access. And there it was. Award letter, Ethan Mitchell. Franklin Ridge University. Academic Achievement Scholarship, 80% tuition coverage. Dated 6 weeks ago. I stared at the screen, then read it again. And again. Ethan had gotten the scholarship. Craig lied. Not just to me, but to our son. He wanted me to pay tuition out of pocket while he pocketed the money meant for Ethan's education. I closed the laptop. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to call and accuse. No. I was going to wait. Watch. Plan. Because when a man like Craig plays dirty, the best revenge is always clean and public. The next morning, I woke up before the sun. My mind was already spinning. Every part of me wanted to call Craig and rip into him, ask him what kind of father steals from his own son, what kind of man looks his child in the eye and lies with a straight face. But I didn't. Instead, I opened my laptop again. I went back to Ethan's acceptance letter, then to the scholarship section, and then to the list of academic departments. I clicked through until I found the Faculty of Computer Sciences. And that's when I saw the name. Dr. Michael Gray, Dean of Technology and Innovation. I stared at the photo. Salt and pepper hair. Still had that quiet intensity in the eyes. It couldn't be. But it was. Michael Gray and I had gone to college together. We'd shared an economics class our junior year. He was shy back then, serious and a little awkward, but brilliant in every way. He once offered to help me prep for a midterm and ended up tutoring me for 2 weeks straight. We lost touch after graduation. I heard he moved out west for a while, worked in Silicon Valley, and eventually ended up in academia. I never imagined he'd be back on the East Coast, or running the very college Ethan would attend. I found his email address listed on the department page and hesitated for a second before typing. Subject: Quick Scholarship Inquiry. Hi Dr. Gray. This is Laura Mitchell. I'm not sure if you remember me from Penn State, but we were in Dr. Farrell's Econ 312 class. My son, Ethan Mitchell, was recently accepted into Franklin Ridge, and I noticed your name while reviewing the scholarship materials. I believe he was awarded an academic scholarship, but I've been told otherwise by his father. Would you be able to confirm if he's on the list? I just want to make sure there hasn't been a mix-up. Hope all is well. Laura. I hit send and sat back. My hands were shaking. I wasn't sure what I expected, maybe a polite brush-off or an automated reply days later. But 2 hours later, a new message appeared in my inbox. Subject: Scholarship Inquiry. Laura, of course I remember you. Congratulations on Ethan's acceptance. I had no idea he was your son. What a small world. To clarify, Ethan Mitchell is indeed one of our top scholarship recipients this year. He was awarded the Academic Achievement Award, which covers 80% of tuition. His name is listed among our honors students, and he'll be recognized at our orientation welcome ceremony. If there's any issue accessing this information, let me know. I'd be happy to help. And please, it would be great to catch up. Let me know if you'll be attending orientation. Best. Michael. I read that email 3 times. It was all there. In black and white. Ethan had earned the scholarship. Craig had lied. He had likely planned to pretend Ethan didn't get anything, force me to cover half of the tuition, and maybe even intercept the funds once I transferred them. It was disgusting. Shameless. But I wasn't going to expose him just yet. Not over a phone call. Not in private. No, Craig Mitchell liked to perform. He loved being the charming dad in front of an audience, adored praise like oxygen. So if he wanted to play the part of the concerned father in front of the entire parent body at Franklin Ridge, then I'd let the truth show up with a spotlight. I marked the orientation date on my calendar. Ethan's name would be read aloud on stage. And I'd be sitting right there, watching Craig's face when the lie he built collapsed in front of everyone. Orientation day arrived warm and bright, the late August air humming with nervous excitement and the scent of fresh mulch and coffee carts. I pulled into the Franklin Ridge parking lot a few minutes early. Students and parents were everywhere, lugging dorm bins, snapping pictures, laughing nervously. Ethan had moved in the day before, but today was the official kickoff, the dean's welcome, scholarship announcements, and a campus tour for families. I wore a pale blue blouse and a quiet smile, both crisp and composed. I'd practiced this moment in my mind all week, calm, confident, absolutely unshaken. I was ready. Craig arrived 10 minutes later in a navy blazer and sunglasses, grinning like a campaign poster. He made a show of waving at everyone, patting Ethan on the back like a proud father of the year. He spotted me and walked over with that same polished energy I used to mistake for charm. "Laura," he said, flashing his smile. "Glad you could make it." I nodded. "Wouldn't miss it." He leaned in. "Remember to bring up the tuition when you get a moment." Deadline's next week, and the bursar's office doesn't play around. I looked him dead in the eye and said, of course. He turned to Ethan, slinging an arm around his shoulders. Our boy's growing up. Shame about that scholarship, huh? But hey, he's still here. We make it work. Ethan didn't respond. He just smiled weakly. I said nothing. Let the curtain rise. We all filed into the main auditorium. The walls were lined with banners in deep forest green and gold. Families filled the rows, murmuring softly. The stage was set with a podium and a few chairs. On the big screen overhead, Franklin Ridge University Orientation, Welcome, Class of 2029. Dean Michael Gray stepped onto the stage, greeted with polite applause. He was older now, but poised, confident, exactly how I remembered. Good morning, parents and students, he began. It's an honor to welcome you all to Franklin Ridge, a place where young minds grow into the future's brightest leaders. Craig leaned over to me mid-speech. This guy looks familiar. I kept my eyes on the stage. He should. Dean Gray continued. Before we begin today's program, I want to recognize a few exceptional students whose academic achievements have earned them the highest merit awards. These students ranked in the top 1% of our applicant pool and have been granted our Distinguished Academic Scholarship. Craig straightened in his seat. Here we go. I folded my hands in my lap. Dean Gray lifted a small card and began reading names. Adam Carlson. Priya Shah. Evelyn Ortega. Each name received applause, and a spotlight tracked students rising shyly from their seats, waving or nodding. Then he paused. And Ethan Mitchell. Applause. But it wasn't the name that caused Craig to go rigid beside me, it was what followed. Dean Gray smiled, eyes scanning the crowd. Ethan is a standout in our technology and innovation department. His scholarship covers 80% of tuition, awarded for academic excellence, leadership, and service. He'll be joining our honors cohort this fall. He paused slightly, just enough for effect, and then added, and I must say, when I saw the name Mitchell on the list, I had to wonder, any relation to Laura Mitchell? Heads turned. I gave a quiet nod from my seat. Dean Gray smiled. I thought so. We go way back. Congratulations, Ms. Mitchell. You raised quite the scholar. Another round of applause. Craig sat frozen. No smile. No movement. Just an expression like someone had poured cold water down his back in slow motion. I turned to him, just enough so only he could hear. You were saying something about the bursar's office? His jaw twitched. He didn't respond. And for once, he had nothing to say. As the applause faded and the program continued, Craig sat next to me like a statue, his perfect posture suddenly rigid, fingers clenched just slightly against the armrest. He didn't speak. He didn't even blink as Dean Gray continued introducing the faculty and outlining the curriculum. Whatever mask he had carefully constructed for the day was cracking, and I wasn't about to offer him a single piece of tape. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. The room had done it for me. The looks from the other parents sitting nearby, the polite congratulations whispered my way, and the barely contained confusion flickering on Craig's face, it was enough. The truth had walked into the room on its own 2 feet and introduced itself with a spotlight. After the ceremony, we filtered out of the auditorium. Ethan was waiting near the front entrance, his name tag now slightly crooked and his face flushed from all the attention. Hey, he called out, smiling, clearly unaware of the tension between his parents. Did you hear? I got the scholarship after all. I smiled warmly and gave him a hug. We sure did, honey. You earned every bit of it. Craig finally found his voice. Ethan, he said, stepping in with a forced laugh. About that, there must have been some miscommunication. I was just going off what I saw. I thought you didn't get it. These things happen. Ethan's smile faltered. But, didn't you say you checked my email? That there wasn't anything from the school? Craig shrugged, keeping his tone light. They must have updated it after I looked. It's not a big deal. All that matters is you're here now. Ethan looked between the two of us, something clearly clicking behind his eyes. He didn't speak. But he didn't smile again, either. Michael Gray walked past us just then, offering another warm smile in my direction. Laura, I hope we'll catch up before the semester really kicks off. Coffee sometime? I nodded. Absolutely. Craig's eyebrows lifted just slightly, like he was trying to recalculate everything at once. Michael turned to Ethan. And congratulations again, Ethan. You earned this place. We're lucky to have you. Thanks, sir, Ethan said, a little more quietly now. Michael disappeared into the sea of parents and staff. Craig gave me a look, low and cutting. You set that up, didn't you? I tilted my head. Set what up? That little speech. The dean. Mentioning your name. Making me look like a fool. I raised an eyebrow. I didn't make you look like anything, Craig. You did that all on your own. He stared at me, his jaw tight, his face pale. You had no right to go behind my back. And you had no right to lie to your son about a scholarship he worked hard for. You tried to manipulate me for money. Again. Only this time, you forgot one thing. What? I smiled. I do my homework. Ethan shifted beside us, the tension clearly washing over him now. Dad, he said, quiet but firm. Why did you tell me I didn't get the scholarship? Craig opened his mouth, closed it, then finally said, I was trying to protect you. I didn't want you to be disappointed if it fell through. You lied, Ethan said. No anger. Just cold realization. You lied to Mom. You lied to me. Craig tried again. Son. But Ethan didn't let him finish. I'll handle my own tuition stuff from now on. I'll talk to the school directly. The blow landed. Craig stood there, speechless, as his son, his only son, walked away from him without another word. I followed Ethan out toward the main quad, where families were already splitting up for department tours. You okay? I asked. He nodded slowly. Yeah. Just a little disappointed, I guess. In him? In myself. For believing him. I touched his arm. There's no shame in trusting someone you loved. The shame is when they use that trust against you. He glanced at me. How did you know he was lying? I didn't. Not at first. But when something doesn't feel right, I've learned to follow it. And trust myself. He was quiet for a beat, then gave me a soft smile. Thanks for showing up today. I always will, I said. Even when other people don't. We walked across campus, the summer sun warming our backs. Craig didn't follow. And I didn't look back. That night, after I got home, I sat in the living room with a glass of wine in one hand and Ethan's scholarship confirmation printed neatly in the other. I'd already seen it online a dozen times, but there was something about holding it, tangible proof that truth always, eventually, floats to the surface. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Craig. You didn't have to humiliate me. We could have handled that privately like adults. I stared at the screen, lips curled into a half smile. Handled like adults? No. What Craig meant was handled in secret. In the shadows. Quietly, so he could keep spinning his lies, reshaping the narrative, coming out clean. He hated exposure more than anything. It was like sunlight to a vampire. I didn't reply. He followed up 10 minutes later. For the record, I was going to tell Ethan eventually. I just wanted to make sure the money came in first. Things are tight. Things are tight. Translation, I wanted to steal a few $1,000s from you and your son, but with a clean conscience. Still, I said nothing. The next morning, I contacted the bursar's office and had all future tuition communication rerouted directly to me and Ethan. I also scheduled a session with the school's financial aid advisor so Ethan could learn how to manage the account himself. He was 18 now. It was time. I didn't tell Craig I did it. Let him find out the next time he tries to check Ethan's email. Over the next few weeks, Ethan settled into campus life. He joined the tech club, found a small circle of students who shared his love for coding and board games, and started helping a professor with some database work on weekends. His energy shifted, brighter, more grounded. I could tell he was finally breathing air that was his. One evening he called just to talk, not because he needed something, not because there was a problem. Just to chat. "Hey Mom," he said. "I talked to the dean today, Michael Gray. He asked if we were related again and said you were one of the smartest students he ever knew." I laughed. "He's being generous." "No, he seemed serious. He said he wasn't surprised I got the scholarship if I was your kid." That stuck with me. Craig had always tried to shape the narrative, that he was the sharp one, the success, the leader. But Ethan was beginning to see for himself that integrity and intelligence weren't always loud. Sometimes they were just consistent. Quiet. Steady. Honest. And those things? They last longer. Weeks passed. Craig grew quieter. I'd see his name on the caller ID sometimes and let it go to voicemail. The messages were civil, but strained. There was no apology. Just noise. I forwarded the messages to my email, labeled them unnecessary. Letting go wasn't loud either. It was quiet. Soft. Just space. Ethan didn't talk much about his father after that day. But I noticed he stopped calling him Dad and started calling him Craig when referring to him with friends. That said everything. At the end of Ethan's first month, I drove up to campus for the Parents in STEM networking dinner. Dean Gray was hosting. When I walked into the hall, he greeted me with a smile and a warm hug. "Laura," he said. "Good to see you again. Ethan's doing great, by the way." "He doesn't say much," I smiled. "But I can tell he's happy." We spent the evening talking like old friends, catching up on the years we'd lost, the people we knew. At one point, he leaned in and said, "You always had a fire in you. I knew it the day you challenged Dr. Farrell on interest rate policy." I laughed. He was wrong. I was right. Michael grinned. "You still are." As the night wore on, I realized something had shifted, not just with Craig, or Ethan, or the past, but with me. I wasn't surviving anymore. I was standing. On my own. No lies. No shadows. Just the truth, and everything I'd built from it. A few months later, as fall began to settle over Philadelphia, I found myself reflecting on just how much had changed since that single orientation morning. Ethan was thriving. He called every Sunday, not out of obligation but habit, a ritual that quickly became my favorite part of the week. We didn't always talk about anything big. Sometimes it was just a funny story from the dining hall or a new app he was working on with his friends. But each time I heard his voice, I could feel the confidence growing in him. The independence. The clarity. He'd stopped asking Craig for anything. And Craig? He faded, slowly but certainly, like a background noise that once seemed deafening but now barely registered. I heard through mutual friends that he tried to spin the story. Claimed it was just a clerical error or a misunderstanding. Said I'd blew things out of proportion. But the thing about people like Craig is that they eventually run out of new audiences to fool. Eventually, the story gets old. The charm wears off. And when the lies pile high enough, even the best performance collapses under their weight. The last message I ever got from him came 2 weeks before Christmas. "Hope Ethan's doing well. Let me know if he wants to see me over break." I showed it to Ethan. He read it once, handed the phone back, and said, "I'll think about it." He never brought it up again. And I didn't press. Because this wasn't about revenge anymore. It wasn't about winning against Craig. That part of me, the part that once wanted him exposed, humiliated, brought to his knees in front of a crowd, had gone quiet. Not because he didn't deserve it, but because I didn't need it. The truth had already done its job. I was at peace. And more importantly, so was my son. One afternoon, while organizing some old paperwork, I came across a folder labeled Ethan, College Prep. Inside were the original printouts of his application essays, a few scholarship forms, and a checklist I'd made the night he submitted everything. It felt like a lifetime ago. Tucked into the back was a yellow sticky note in Ethan's handwriting. Thanks for believing in me, even when I wasn't sure I deserved it. I sat down with that note in my lap, and I cried. Not because I was sad, but because it hit me all at once, how much pain we had both walked through, how many lies we'd untangled, how much trust we had to rebuild, and how far we'd come. That's the thing about truth. It doesn't always come fast. It doesn't always shout. Sometimes it just sits quietly, waiting, knowing that no matter how deep the deception, no matter how loud the lie, truth will rise. Eventually. Always. And when it does? It doesn't just clear the air. It clears the path. Today, I no longer introduce myself as someone's ex-wife. I am Laura Mitchell. Mother. Professional. Woman who didn't flinch when the truth asked her to stand tall. And if I've learned anything through this entire journey, it's this. You don't need to scream to be heard. You don't need to fight dirty to win. Sometimes, all you need is one spotlight, one stage, and the strength to let someone's lies collapse under their own weight, while you walk forward, head high, heart clean. That's exactly what I did. And I'll keep doing it, for my son, for myself, and for the truth. Last week, Ethan came home for fall break. He tossed his duffel bag by the door, kicked off his sneakers, and collapsed onto the couch like he hadn't just spent the last 8 weeks becoming a fully formed adult. Being a college student is exhausting, he groaned, his arm over his eyes. I miss Mom's fridge. I laughed, walking into the kitchen. You mean the fridge that's actually stocked and organized? And doesn't charge me $15 for a tiny tub of hummus? Yes. We spent the weekend catching up, movies, takeout, and the kind of conversations I used to dream we'd have once he grew up. No awkward silences. No walking on eggshells. Just honesty. Sunday night, we sat on the porch. The air was crisp, leaves starting to blush into orange and gold. He looked thoughtful, staring out into the dusk. Can I ask you something? He said. Of course. Why didn't you ever tell me earlier? About Dad. About what he was doing. I paused, then answered honestly. Because I wanted you to come to the truth on your own. I didn't want to rip him away from you. That's something only you could choose. He nodded slowly. It hurt, finding out he lied to me like that. I know, I said. But if I'd told you outright, you might have defended him. Or doubted me. You needed to see it. And you did. He was quiet for a while. Then he said, I'm glad you didn't turn it into a war. I looked at him. That's because I didn't need to. The truth was always going to come out. I just had to let it. He smiled a little, the kind of smile that says I get it now, the kind of smile that only comes after loss, clarity, and growing up all at once. When he left the next morning, he hugged me tighter than usual. Thanks for not just protecting me, he said, but for letting me see who he really was. I watched his car disappear down the street, and I knew in that moment. This wasn't just a victory over a lie. This was a generational shift. The cycle was broken. My son would grow up to be a man who tells the truth. Who values it. Who sees through manipulation. Not because I told him to, but because I showed him how. That's what we do, when we choose not to fight fire with fire. We plant something different. And if we're patient enough, that seed grows into something stronger than any lie ever could. Truth doesn't need revenge. It needs space. And time. And someone strong enough to let it breathe. When people lie to manipulate, they think they're controlling the story. But the story always finds its way back to the truth, one spotlight, one sentence, one brave choice at a time. Let people reveal themselves. And when they do, let them fall on their own words. Because nothing is louder than the silence of a lie collapsing in public. And nothing is more powerful than standing tall beside the truth. What would you have done if someone tried to lie that boldly in front of your child? Let us know where you're watching from in the comments. If you believe Laura handled it like a queen, vote number 1. If you'd have taken it further, vote number 9. Don't forget to subscribe to EN True Tales for a new story of truth, betrayal, and justice every single day.